Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So we got something else for the Kyosho Optima Mid, and this one is the stabiliser kit, front and rear, and this is the OTW135. It's the only part number I can see on it. This is a genuine Kyosho part, so let's bring in for a close-up look and see what fit an anti-roll bar entails. Right, so first thing we need to do is get out the front stabiliser bar and these two little brass balls, and we've got to fit these in to these little sort of ends, so I would twist them sideways. So if you can see it, I've just twisted them sideways. Should make it easier to get these little balls in. And then it's going to be very difficult to get this on camera, but basically you just got to get these little balls into the sort of sway bar holder or ends. So the easiest way I've found of doing it is turn these sideways, get the little ball on, and then pop it in. So let's quickly get that done with the opposite side. Sorry if it's not a great sort of camera angle, but kind of best I can do at minute. So now the first one's in. Just gonna get the second one dropped on. And they do only seem to want to go in from one side. So once you've got the little brass balls in, you just need to line them back up to face pretty much in the direction that your sway bar is going to be coming in from. So next thing we need to do, we're going to have to remove the front bumper. Then we're going to flip back over, and it tells us we need to remove this completely, but I'm going to see if we can get away with just backing these screws out, and I'm just wondering if it'll just give us enough gap to drop that sway bar in. Because certainly the little E-clips, they get weaker every time you take them off, and we have took them off already. So if we back that out a bit, can we then get the sway bar into place? Yep. So that's definitely a better option than having to remove all the E-clips. And then you can line the two ends up. And then all we need to do is tighten this back down. And that'll keep us sway bar in place. And we've not had to remove the little E-clips, and that is properly in its position. So we can flip the RC back over and quickly replace the two screws on the bottom. And now we can move on to the rear. So for this one, the instructions very nicely show it you with no rear wing mount or anything on, which is certainly not the case. And with this rear wing mount on, we can't get to the screws that it's telling us we need to remove for the sway bar. So the first thing we're going to have to do is remove the 2 screws holding the wing. So we're definitely going to need wing assembly off. Then we're going to have to remove these 2 screws because we need to get to the back of this carbon part. So we can keep all them to one side. Then we're going to have to get the parts that we actually need. So we want the 2 longer ones off. We're going to need the 2 retainers. And the feeling of these parts not really instilling me with confidence. They do feel very, very brittle. So now we need to get together all our sway bar. So first it's asking us to put some of these ends into these. So we need to get 2 ends into these stops. Then we've got to get our ball studs mounted onto the actual RC itself. So you want 1 on one side, 1 into the other. So once we've got them into place, you're then going to need to get one of the tiny grub screws. And then they're going to need to be fastened 1 each into these little ball joints. So next thing we're going to do, we've got to get our brackets on here. So for these we've got a 1.5mm hex. So the stock setup that it's telling us to go with is to fasten the 1.5mm screw through the top. Then we've got to get one of those brackets. You're going to want to put a nut in each one of these. And then you're just going to want to get them started. So now we're going to need to feed the anti-roll bar underneath, which is probably going to be easier said than done with these, because it leaves very little. So it might be worth getting one under first. Let's see if there's any way of doing it without it falling off. Yep, so if you back them off slightly, you can just get them to grip. And then you want to tighten these up. So once we've got them in place, we can now put our screws back in that hold all our rear suspension assembly together. So once we've got that all in, then we can line these up. So you want to get the bottoms on first. So once they're clipped into position, you can then bring your roll bars up, and then you need the 1.5mm driver. So for me, once we got these in place, make sure everything fits, I just like to tighten them up and just leave them facing just off to the side, because then when your wing's in place, you can still get to them. Now you can thread lock these, which looking at it, I probably would. But we do have front and rear sway bars. So let's just quickly make sure that our wing will actually go back in place. That's going to make it even more fun to get these wing screws back in. Certainly some of the components on this RC look a bit of an afterthought. So for this one, we can get the screws back in, but you're looking at a bit of an angle, and it's certainly easier with the likes of these MIP ball drivers. Do let you come at it from an off angle. Certainly save you some stress. Now I think for me, it doesn't tell you, but I would probably drop a little bit of thread lock on those two if you're going to be running it, and probably on these two. But as I say, the instructions don't tell you to. So for me, if I were going to run it, I would probably get some thread lock in those parts. But it is all together, and up to now it is the only mod part that we've put on it that actually comes with instructions. So none of the Cosworks parts come with instructions, but the Kyosho parts do. But it's making it a little bit more bling, it's got a little bit more to it, and yeah, let's wrap this one up. So there we have it, the front and rear anti-roll bars. These bits, these links, they do feel a bit brittle. So on the rear one, these two what look like lower positions. Not really sure if they need it. Does look like it's lined up where it should be. The front one, pretty easy to put on, and there's no grub screws in the front, it just slides in between the little brass balls. But yeah, not too horrible to fit, and you do get away without the E-clips being removed on the front. Thanks again for watching WTF Rc Cars. Hopefully you find this fun, entertaining, or a bit of both. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.